All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Here's Why You're Wrong. I am Mick. We've got Brian and Jim with you this evening. Thank you for joining us. We're talking about smoking tonight, as you can see right there. I actually pointed the right direction. Did you notice that?
That's awesome.
9 times out of 10, I'll go this way because it's confusing because it's backwards, but I think I'm getting used to it now. We're going to be talking about smoking tonight. We want you guys to give us a call, 503-207-7135. If you smoke, please call us because I'm going to be making fun of you for the next 55 minutes. I want you to have a chance to defend yourself. Brian will be halfway defending you.
I'll be defending you, absolutely.
Maybe.
You're
Jim?
an underserved demographic. You know, 50 years ago, you dominated the airwaves in every show all the time, and so now, who talks about smoking? We don't see smoking nearly enough. So
We're going to talk about
I'm being
it.
facetious. We're going to talk about smoking.
Jim is disgusted by you, right? I mean, is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Disgusted? Yeah, and so please give us a call if you're a smoker. We want to talk about how you feel being kicked down the street to smoke, paying the taxes, all that good stuff about how we treat you, and tell us why we shouldn't think you're a loser, basically. You know, try to make that argument. Try being the operative word. In the meantime, current events, we want to talk a little bit about stuff that's going on now. Sort of the biggest story lately has been problems in the Ukraine, of which I know very little, but I think maybe you guys do. From what I understand, first of all, it's all Russia to me, right? I mean, it's all, listen.
The old Soviet Union.
Vodka, same accent, I don't know. But it all used to be Soviet Union, now there's little pieces, Ukraine. Apparently, Ukraine and Russia now going at it, right?
Well, yeah.
Russia's
Russia's got
into
occupying
Ukraine.
for or
Right.
whatever. They've got their military in a portion of the Ukraine.
So is that different than if we occupied Mexico? I mean, they're two separate countries. One is going into the other.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think they're it's like if we were to occupy Baja California or something, or to you do a portion of the country.
Yeah, but
and
there's
say,
not a lot of North Americans in Mexico. They're Spanish and Indian, and then America is
Well, what about
Caucasian
Canada?
from European immigration.
Canada
but
is
in
North America.
Crimea, a lot of those people are Russian or Russian descent. So that's the pretext is that
These are our people. And
these
we're
are
gonna
our
go
people.
protect
We're protecting them because the former president of Ukraine that's on the lam now was killing the citizens with the police force in Kiev. Was it in Kiev? And so they kicked him out, and he had been looting the treasury.
Yeah.
And
his real crime was that he wanted closer ties with the Soviet Union, with
Yeah.
Russia, and everybody else wanted closer ties with the European Union.
right, that was
the
yeah.
real impetus.
Yeah.
He'd been doing some other things, and during the revolt, some citizens got killed by the police. But that was after the revolt was going. The real thing started with they wanted closer ties with the EU and to move more towards the West. And he was a buddy of Putin's, and he wanted to move more towards. And just a quick thing, they were tonight on the news. They were talking about it. That Crimea, which is almost a peninsula of the Ukraine, about 50% of the people are Russian. The other are Ukrainian.
Yep.
And about half of the eastern part of the Ukraine aligns itself with Russia.
Yep.
But again, it's only about 50% of the population.
Yep.
So it's about a 50-50. And that's sort of where they're at now.
That's John in the control room, by the way,
That
bringing
is
the
John.
knowledge.
Hey,
So-
John, you want to tell the other riffraff in the control room that we're trying to do a live television show, and so if they could keep it down, that would be great.
So
So
one
we can
other
hear
little detail about Crimea too is that apparently, I don't know about all of history, but it was originally a part of Russia. And so in 1954, under the Soviet Union, Russia, for reasons of convenience as much as anything, made it part of the Ukrainian province or whatever it was at that time. and it's been part of the Ukraine since. And so there's a lot of people that believe in Crimea itself, that it really is part of Russia. And so there's a bit of a split opinion, at least amongst the Ukrainian people themselves, about Crimea and
But
what country it's part of.
if they were upset with the president, if the divide was people wanting to be with the EU or be with Russia, now the president's gone and Russia steps in and says, all right, we're taking charge. Well, that's going to piss half the people off, right? I mean,
Yeah, I think
presumably.
Yeah, I think that it seems like that the people, though, that more than half, I mean, even though there's a significant number of people that want to go Russian's way, that's part of why the president or whatever he was had to leave, is because most of the people wanted to go to the West, and there were financial reasons and other trade reasons.
Well, a lot
so
of the
disagreed.
natural gas that Western Europe uses, or Europe in general uses, comes from the Soviet Union
Yep.
through pipelines through Ukraine.
Well, what does go to the West mean? I mean, they want to be
Be part of the EU or
West-leaning
join the-
NATO.
join
Yeah,
NATO,
okay.
maybe. Who knows?
Hmm.
Do we have some Russians out there? Some Ukrainians?
Yeah.
If you're Russian or
Crimeans?
Ukrainian.
Cossacks?
I worked with a lady from Ukraine for a while, so I know that there's a lot of them out there, and they're
My
very specific.
coworkers, his wife is Ukrainian.
They're Ukrainian. They don't want you to tell them that they're Russian. That is. Yeah.
Now that was the German armies made it that far in World War II, at the high tide of the Nazi invasion of the Soviet Union. They occupied Crimea and the Caucasus Mountains there. Yeah, that was
Harsh
the high
land.
point.
That's where the
the
oil
whole-
was. I think
oil,
part
yeah.
of what they're doing is taking away Russia's oil. So.
Well, we'll see how this all plays out. I mean, it's another.
It's interesting stuff, though, because Putin is lying, right? So the big thing that he's been using as a that's what Hillary Clinton was saying, is that, that the Russian-speaking people are being persecuted, and so he's coming in to liberate
Right,
the
the same-
Russian-speaking
what-
people,
yeah.
which is and so there's just that whole thing.
What
just
Hitler
the
used, he
diplomatic
said that that was the pretext
struggle.
for invading Czechoslovakia
Yeah.
and Romania. They were protecting the ethnic German populations there prior to in 1938, and when they went into the
Before they
is that
started
the
the whole Jew
Sudetenland?
killing thing.
No, that started earlier. 33 is when Hitler took power. Finally.
And
So.
she compared him to Hitler?
Yes.
She
compared him to
did.
Hitler? I'm sure he
It was
loved
supposed to
that.
be a closed private luncheon.
How many
And
times?
they're without reporters. But
when are politicians going to understand that those don't actually exist?
With
If
these
you're on a
things,
stage
yeah,
with a
right,
microphone
with these
on,
things, yeah, exactly.
yeah.
But it's probably she's running for president, and the next time she's got to somehow make herself stand out, and throwing out.
You think she
like
did it
that.
on
Being
purpose for
tough,
that
being
reason?
tough
Could
toward
be
Russia, yeah.
because she was the whole thing, the détente with Russia, and when she was Secretary of State, redefining the U.S. relationship with Russia, and coming to a more mutual understanding of each other, and now this happens, and so.
I'll tell you, Russia is a special kind of place.
Have you been there?
No, but in terms of corruption and sort of the things that they will accept as normalcy, I mean, during the Olympics, the opening ceremony, when Putin's in the box there, and they're like, here comes the such and such torchbearer, reputed to be Putin's girlfriend, and so he let her carry the torch, It's like, wow,
Right.
you could not get away with that in the U.S. I mean, there's just no way.
Yeah.
He's divorced now, which number one is one thing you couldn't do here as president. And can you imagine a president getting a divorce?
Yeah.
And then being president again later?
So he's
we
not
had-
worried about his reelection? Is that
He's
what's
not
going on?
not
Okay.
so much concerned with that,
Yeah.
and then they just sort of flaunt it all out in the open, and it's like, yeah, what do you got to say about it?
Right.
And he's not one to mince words.
What's interesting now too is just with the fact that he's doing this, and with the timing of it and so on. It seems like the United States has already gone to war, and there's clearly a tide that's going against that. I mean, it's just interesting because now there's people,
What,
the
are we gonna
Republicans,
invade
some of
Russia?
them, yeah,
I mean,
some of
come on.
no, but there's some of them that are saying, well, we got to be tough and we got to do all this, and it's really strange to me.
What
that,
really
Yeah.
can the U.S. do? I mean, They can freeze some bank accounts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't.
That's
think-
about it. They can, you know.
If you've ever seen World Police, the marionette movie, we can send them a strongly worded letter. You know, it's like
Yeah,
it's
that's
going to
probably
be a
about it.
really strongly worded letter. Yeah.
Yeah, so
So,
look out.
That's
look
right.
out.
Well, I'm going to send you
Putin.
a letter.
It's coming.
I'm going to have everybody in the UN sign it. You're not going to like
That's right.
it. Yeah.
I guess the Ukraine owes Russia a lot of money for the natural gas that they've been using and not paying for.
Well, and they've been giving them a discount. So
Right.
now that this whole thing's happened, I'm sorry to interrupt, but they're now wanting to pay them all the discounted gas. We want you to. You're in now in arrears for all the discounts we've given you, or something like that.
Yeah, it's a great way for democracy to work. It's sort of like, well, you do owe us some back rent, so we're going to go ahead and take your country.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's really how it should work, but we'll see how it plays out. I don't think there's a good answer of here's what America can do. We can just charge in, and I mean,
We can send a destroyer to the Black Sea, which is what we're doing now. And
yeah,
kids put some
these
jets
big
in
shows
Latvia
of
or
force.
Lithuania.
Yeah, it's like, okay, we'll put a boat there. What? They're not afraid we're going to launch a nuke at them. Like they know we're not going to really do anything.
Well,
It's
it was already planned. That's what they say, by the way. We already had this
Or
planned.
we're doing some military exercises in that
Yeah.
in that vicinity.
We had it.
Yeah,
we had it
that's
figured out.
great.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's talk about smoking. Give us a call, 503-207-7135. We're going to talk about smoking. I think, have all of us smoked at one point or another? Or at least smoked
You
a
have?
cigarette
Yes.
Yeah, I used to smoke.
regularly?
Yeah,
And you, Brian, were a regular smoker?
Yes. At
I
certain
would-
times, yeah.
steal cigarettes from my mom. She smoked Viceroys in the
yeah.
kitchen in the middle drawer, and she'd have like a carton in there. But she quit in 1975. My mom. And she
Well,
smoked.
so when were you? So you were stealing from her before 1975?
Yeah, I started when I was 16, maybe.
Wow.
Um,
I smoked a couple, just like in high school or whatever. It's like
Yeah.
all the cool kids are doing it. I never really was to the point that it was a habit, or my parents never smoked. My dad smoked a pipe, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But I was never much of a smoker. How long did you smoke?
Oh boy, you're telling that story. I had a friend when I was a little kid. I mean, we're talking about 7, 8 years old, and they would steal Pall Malls from their parents. We'd go get
no
into
filters,
go into a sticker fort. I don't know if you guys ever did a sticker fort.
like
You
a
hollow out.
briar patch.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you'd-
You hollow it out, and so we'd all go in there and
Oh.
we'd smoke cigarettes, and and then somebody said you're supposed to inhale those things, and we did, and it's like, what are you? That's crazy. How can you inhale? That's the
Yeah, I
dumbest
mean,
thing
when you
ever.
first start it, it's like you're coughing and choking, and you have to like force yourself to do it. And
Yeah.
what a bizarre concept! Light something on fire and then put it up close to your face.
Yeah.
I mean, that,
And then breathe it into your, the
Yeah.
thing that
it's a bizarre concept.
Yeah.
How far back does smoking go? Do you think? Well, thousands of years. I
Thousands
think.
of years.
I was reading 5,000 years was the first.
Wow.
And they smoked all sorts of strange
Well,
things.
the
too, not
Indians
just-
are the ones, the Native Americans here, that turned the Europeans onto tobacco, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
Because
did
that
they?
Oh.
wasn't a European thing.
Yeah. But cannabis had been being smoked in parts of the
Right.
have a feeling,
near
yeah.
in India and a couple other places
Yeah.
before then. So
Yeah, and it's interesting. That's one of the things we can talk about is the difference with which we treat those two things, cannabis and just plain old tobacco. Because you've got these, these hookah shops or the head shops where they sell pipes for tobacco use.
Well, they sell them for drug use too.
Well, yeah, but not efficient. They can't advertise it
Oh.
as a bong, so
Oh,
they have to
well-
be like, well, you can smoke your tobacco in this or your.
Yeah.
And they have to sort of do
Well,
it
those
on
glass
the slide.
pipes for smoking methamphetamine or whatever,
Right.
or yeah.
But
crack
it's like
pipes.
because one we are treating as illegal and unacceptable. One we're treating as legal, but still unacceptable, really, in today's society. And why did that line get drawn? Because I think cannabis has probably been smoked a lot longer than tobacco.
Yeah.
Do you think?
Yeah.
I mean,
I think
the
it got-
Indians probably been not included by the white man, I suppose. So yeah.
But well, yeah. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me to find out that the Egyptians, were smoking, doing all sorts of weird stuff like that. And I mean, this stuff has a way. Some guy stumbles upon it in the woods, and it's like, whoa, you got to check this out, Bob.
Yeah, I mean, how
This
does
will blow your
like
mind.
drugs? How do they figure out what to eat? Like
Or how do you?
ayahuasca down in the Amazon or something. I mean, did some native look at it and go, gee, I think I'll take it, I'll boil it, make a tea out of it, but
Yeah.
I've got to add these other 3 things. Yeah, how did they figure that out?
Well, it's like, dude, have you licked the
crazy.
back of this toad yet?
Right.
How did that happen? Some guy's just like, I think I'll lick this toad and see what happens. Who knows? But, you know, cigarettes have evolved over time. We've got, you know, I mean, they've gone from roll your own to, you know, the filters, and then they started with the low tar, and I mean, there's, God, got to be hundreds of different varieties of cigarettes throughout the world now. I wonder, did you have some stats on the decline in smoking use?
I don't think I have specific statistics on that right now.
I think we all
Sorry.
know it's gone down.
Yes, it
Well,
has.
I've heard it was 1
Dramatically.
in 5 in Oregon, 1 in 5 people still smoke. I think 10, 20 years ago it was 1 in 3. So yeah, it's gone down as the price has gone up. And
Worldwide, just real quickly, worldwide, 1 billion people smoke. That's one statistic. And I read almost 5 million people worldwide die every year from smoking-related disease.
I could believe that.
Yeah, 5 million. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, you're.
Tobacco caused 100 million deaths in the 20th century.
That's a lot.
That's a lot of death.
So, to be clear, you know, as we talk about smoking, even if we have some pro-smoker, I may say some things that are not as negative about smoking as my 2 cohorts here, but none of us support smoking. Smoking, I think we can agree, right? Just want to be clear that it's deadly, and I personally.
If used as directed, it kills you.
Yeah,
It's a
it
product
yes.
that used as directed, it will kill you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mostly.
There's those
Some
exceptions.
people smoke with impunity.
Yeah.
For COPD, it's not everybody that smokes. I think it's 1 in 3 people that smoke for 50 years will end up with COPD, and so there's a large group of people that smoke that don't get COPD.
Yeah, you know, so let's talk about the what do you call it, stigma, you know, attached to smoking. Just on the way here tonight, I had to stop at a couple of stores on the way here, you know, and I head in and there's a guy standing a few feet down from the thing, you know, just puffing away, and then there's 3 guys over standing outside their car having a puff before they get in, and instantly I judge them as douches. I mean, it's just instantly like, oh God, you look like you just don't have your crap together. You know, it's rare these days that I will see a Fortune 500 guy in his suit hop off a private jet and, you know, be smoking. Like, it's always people sort of who look like they have come from a very low income part of town, or, you know, they're wearing tattered clothing, or they're just, cleanliness is not their priority.
I think it's where you go or where you look. If you go to
Maybe.
a bar, if you go to an expensive bar where
You're going to
people
see cigars. I think
you're
going to
see
cigars,
cigars,
it's
but you're
different.
going to see people smoking cigarettes. They might not, and dressed nicely and drinking expensive drinks. And thank God you can't smoke in buildings now anymore. So it makes it nice to go out and have a beer or whatever, or
Yeah.
and you don't have to put up with the smoke.
It's also different regionally. I think if you go to different cities, if you go to,
True.
if you go to the East Coast, I think that depending on where you are, it's more acceptable to see, a well-to-do person or people in suits smoking. It's just more common, it seems like.
Or Europe.
Essentially.
Yeah,
They smoke like stoves, China and Europe.
yeah.
Why do people start smoking? There's really only one excuse, as far as I can see, and that's peer pressure. I mean, that's always
So
the way it starts.
I asked my 18-year-old son about that, in fact, today. And so I'm not naive enough to believe that my 18-year-old son has never smoked a cigarette. And so, I asked him, I said, why does somebody your age start smoking? What with all
He's
of
a smoker.
No, he's not. He's not a smoker. But
Why would someone your age?
I was just
if he
asking,
did?
why do you believe? And I know that some of his friends
Subjective.
do, and whatever, and he said, I've smoked sometimes, whatever he has, and he started talking about the buzz You know, that you take a drag and you feel the feeling of smoking. And it's so funny. It's been so long. I forgot all about that. You know, that there's a feeling that you get.
Unless you're smoking if you're smoking a pack a day, you don't feel it.
Agreed.
Well, then you feel it when you stop.
But
Right.
that's why.
And then you smoke again.
That's the problem.
But you asked the question, why does somebody start? I forgot about that. That there is a feeling that you get, and so it's as a kid, right? You're kind of like, ooh, you know, I'm smoking. Oh, how do
But
you
it's
feel
not like
that?
a high.
Yeah.
It's not like,
agreed.
I mean, you know, with pot, you're like, you got to try this. It will free your mind or it'll make you relax or whatever. I don't feel like that gets attached to smoking cigarettes. I think it's more just like, look at the cool kids over here smoking. I want to smoke. So
Yeah,
that
that's
can
why
stand
I
near
started
them.
when I was 16, because my friend
Yeah.
Dave smoked, and I looked up to him and thought that was cool, and
Yeah.
Freaking
it was
Dave.
kind of cool. Marlboros.
Yep.
Yeah.
So-
So we'd walk over to Denny's, up in Cedar Hills there.
Did they have a machine?
Isn't it a topless place now or something? What's that? It used to be a Denny's restaurant right in Cedar Hills, and we'd walk over through the woods with our pack of Marlboros and drink coffee and smoke cigarettes.
Did they have a vending machine? The
Yeah, they
cigarette
had a
vending
smoke.
machine?
Yeah, I think they had a smoke.
Well, but yeah, also the kids would know which stores were going to sell kids cigarettes. Everybody knew
probably
there were
true.
certain places you would go and get
Right.
cigarettes. So
But alcohol now is like this big thing. The micro brews and the distilling spirits is it's promoted. It's acceptable, and so that's gone the other way. Whereas smoking's gone, you
Yeah.
know, the other way of it's bad. You know, you're a douche.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting to me. I mentioned it last show when I was kind of talking about this subject, and you've touched on it. Actually, you've set it up really well. So, I guess I'll, cross with you a little bit. But I used to work, and it was actually in the Lincoln Center in Tigard. I worked there for several years, and every day I'd walk in, and I think when I first got there, people would stand right near the door and they'd smoke underneath the eave. You know, when you walked in, and people would stand out of the rain, right? It's raining outside. They'd stand there and smoke out of the rain. And by then, smoking was already not legal inside, which had happened in our lifetimes. It's
Yeah.
not really been that long ago that people weren't
No.
sitting there at their desks
It
smoking.
was my lifetime.
Yeah. And so, but it was interesting just through time that they, obviously were outside, right? That was a change over the last number of years. And then after a while, they put up a sign that said, you've got to be a certain distance away from the door.
No smoking
and so
within
they
20
moved,
feet.
Yeah, so they
Yeah.
moved a little ways down, right?
Yep.
But they're still close. I don't remember exactly what it was, but they were still close enough to be under the eave of the building and able to smoke, And then pretty soon it just said, you can't stand here anymore. There's a sign that said, you got to get away from this door completely.
Right.
And I understood why, because I was walking through and I was smelling the smoke. I wasn't a smoker. But it struck me at that time, these guys aren't breaking the law. I mean, it's not like there's anything. I understand I'm not a smoker and I don't support their smoking, but is it really necessary, right? Am I so fixated on my own needs? Basically, am I so selfish that I need to make these people who are respectable, law-abiding citizens stand in the rain,
Using
in
illegal
the,
product.
in the cold, doing something
Here's-
that's completely. Just let me. So,
Okay.
so I walk through there and say, why do I have to insist on my way? It's the same thing we see it in all manner of political conversations and everything. It's sort of like, since I'm not a smoker and I don't want to be inconvenienced, I am justified in forcing my will on these people and making them do what at some point maybe there's a convenience issue, but I guess for me, seeing them stand in the rain, it's sort of like, that just isn't right. They don't need to be standing in the rain.
That's completely wrong, and let me tell you why.
No, yeah, okay.
Let me,
You can try.
Let me tell you
You
why you're
can
wrong.
try. Okay.
Here's why you're wrong, Brian. So you could say, why are we making them go down the street because it's not illegal, it's not whatever. First of all, it's private property. So if you don't want to have smokers in your building, that's up to you. This is
Sure.
not. It's
I'm not saying
it's
that
not a law.
Right, but that doesn't make that right.
Well, it's not a question. So let me flip it around to you.
Okay.
Airports. People are going to be traveling 5-6 hours or whatever.
Yeah.
Used to, and now they don't even have these as much anymore, but then they had to make a designated smoking room.
Yeah.
Right? So, okay, halfway through the terminal, If you need to have a smoke because you can't make it from here to Kalamazoo without a smoke, then you stop in here. Why does the airport have to build a separate room to support somebody's habit? Why is there no heroin room? It's like, well, you need to fix
It's illegal.
between
Smoking
here and there.
tobacco's legal. Plus, it provides billions of dollars in taxes.
Well, the airport
That's
doesn't care
important.
about that.
I mean, we got to keep the roads going. I'm just kidding.
Well, no, they call them, sin taxes. It's the same thing with alcohol, and they tax the hell out of all these things. But why do you have to provide a space for somebody to do something that they don't need to do?
I hear you. My question my question, or what I would say is, you don't need to build it, but you also don't need to tear it down. That's really all and I feel like
If it already exists?
Yeah, I feel like that the popular current is, well, we need to do everything that we can to, inconvenience these people. And I understand the rationale because it's bad for society, and there's a
I don't think that's
price
what it
being
is.
paid.
You're insinuating that we are punishing people
I think we are.
by
Yeah.
sending them down the street. I don't think that's what it is. I don't think it's a shaming process. I think it has that effect. I don't think that that's the desire. I think
Well, some people look at it like that, probably. But
Well,
if it's a
it's not
poisonous
spiteful.
product, and if you inhale the secondhand smoke and it could possibly be
Right.
deleterious to your health, then that's why
we want to limit
the
the
real
risk as much
reason
as
why it
possible.
should be done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't have the right. If you choose to smoke, that's great. You don't have the right to inflict that on me.
To endanger my health.
Right.
Right.
That's the reason for it,
And
not
yeah,
shame.
I agree. And I think the other thing that people, the thinking is that it's forced on them. So I'm walking into this door, and I'm now being forced to smell your smoke, right? Just because you're standing here, that's not right. You're endangering my health. You don't have the right to endanger my life, basically, because you're standing here smoking a cigarette.
And I don't necessarily agree
So-
with that.
so-
They have blown that out of proportion, and
So-
I'll agree.
I think that's the rationale. I mean, that's what I see the rationale
That's the
as.
rationale, yeah.
And so if somebody here is going to have something forced on them, it's going to be you. it's kind of,
Yes, and that seems fair on its face. They do blow this secondhand smoking thing way out of proportion. It's not, they come up with crazy statistics like, 50,000
What
people
do you
a
mean?
year
They
die.
come up with crazy statistics.
They do. They come up with crazy statistics.
I mean, there's 90,000 chemicals in the environment that have been put in by chemical companies that they've never even tested for whatever. So you're going to be worried about walking down the street and you might get a whiff of a cigarette go
And
by or something.
You can't attribute. It's very hard to attribute things to secondhand smoke. Someone may die of heart disease down the road, and then you're like, okay, well, did they live with a smoker? Okay, we're going to call that secondhand smoke related, and that's just not accurate.
Well-
They have third-hand smoke that they started to come up with. Have you guys heard of that? I mean,
I think I'm a victim. I'm going to sue somebody.
Well,
I think
yeah,
I've got some
like
money coming my way for that.
The smoke that is absorbed by the clothes, if you're around people that have that on their clothes, that could be bad for your health. Is that what you're saying?
that's what they have
Yeah,
said. Yeah.
yeah.
I want to show you guys. I brought. One thing that we didn't talk about yet is the way that it's changed over time, and part of this was Hollywood and just the way it was treated.
Part of it
in the
was a
40s and
cigarette
50s.
is the most profitable invention in the history of man. The ready-rolled cigarette. It
that could
is.
be.
It is the most profitable.
Well, there's almost no cost. I mean,
Right.
It's like,
right.
it cost
When
3
I was a
cents
kid,
for-
they were 25 cents a pack.
yeah.
You know what? They're over $5 a pack
I don't even
now.
know now. Yeah, something like that with the taxes and everything.
The,
But there was a time in
Yeah.
early this century when they promoted them as sort of being healthy,
Right.
almost. And
Cool
I've got,
cigarettes,
John,
yeah.
can you click over to the first
Well-
of these little graphics that I brought?
And smokers, notice the number there. Over
Yeah,
there.
give us a call.
Come on, we're talking.
Give us a
we
call.
know
I
that
wanna-
you've got feelings on this subject.
I want to look at so look at this. I found this earlier today.
Blow in her
Blow in her face, and she'll follow you anywhere. Okay.
that's
so
what she
there's
says to him.
so that is.
That's
So
pretty funny.
let's see, what does it say?
Tipolate.
Hit her,
Tipolate?
hit her with tangy
Holy.
Tipolate cherry or rich. I mean, this is the advertising.
Is that 60s? That looks like that graphic looks like from the 60s.
I'm sure it is.
Yeah.
I'm sure it is. How about the next one, John?
That's awesome. More.
Now I have this one. I had this one on a magazine that I have in the garage.
Yeah.
More doctors. Can you imagine this today? I don't know what year this was from. I couldn't
Dude,
find out.
when I
but-
first started working in hospitals, physicians smoked at the nurses' station. They had an ashtray.
Oh, geez. Yeah, I mean, this
That's
was...
how old I am.
Here's and here's what they say. Up in the yellow box there, it says he's one of the busiest men in town. While his door may say office hours 2 to 4, he's actually on call 24 hours a day.
Oh.
The doctor is a scientist, a diplomat, and a friendly, sympathetic human being all in one. No matter how long and hard his schedule. So they're setting up at the top. This guy is smart and great, and he
He
smokes
personifies virtue.
Camels. Yeah,
This is
that's what they're saying. And then one more, John, the last one, if you would.
What is the T-zone? Well, there's the thing down there at the
The
bottom.
throat cancer.
Yeah, so then there's Santa smoking his Lucky Strikes, you know? And it's like, wow, we really, it's toasted, it says in the bottom there.
Right.
It's rich, pipe-bodied tobacco.
It's toasted.
It's toasted, and it's a gift of pleasure from Santa Claus. Santa's leaving you. Thank you, Johnny. Go back to the
That's awesome.
lower third. So those are, that is what lots of people grew up, probably your mom, and maybe you grew up with.
Dude, that's
you know?
what the cigarette companies, that's why they resisted the mounting evidence that smoking killed you. For years, they denied it. That is the worst of corporate misbehavior right there, because of the profit, because of the money involved in it, and they finally had to admit. And they were even doctoring the tobacco to increase the nicotine because they knew it was addictive.
Yeah.
That's how disgusting.
Did
And
you guys
yet
have-
you can buy Altria and make a good dividend on it, and then donate the money to the anti-smoking campaign.
which is what you do, right?
There you go.
So, have you guys watched Mad Men? Ever watched an episode of Mad? I mean, have you ever seen that, Jim?
I haven't.
The whole show is based on Mad Men is Madison Avenue.
I mean, I know what it is. Yeah.
And they've got the Philip Morris.
Do they smoke all the time?
Well, and they've got the tobacco company's advertising contract, so
Yeah.
they're in the room smoking cigarettes, coming up with the advertising campaign to have a doctor do a
Right.
commercial for smoking to say it's not
When
deadly.
you
It's
see an
pretty
older
funny.
movie, I mean, so Die Hard is from 82 or 83.
yeah, the older
No,
movies.
it's newer than
they
that,
don't smoke
90.
a whole lot in the movies now.
The
although I-
original Die Hard is not 90s. No way.
Bruce Willis wasn't even. So
I think it
that's
was.
another episode.
Yeah,
Bruce
it was
Willis was nothing.
80s.
I was married by the time Bruce Willis was.
1988.
However,
Okay,
you do need to see Monuments Men,
No.
I've heard that that's great. Yeah.
but they smoke like chimneys in there.
Yeah.
They do smoke like chimneys. The movie was.
There's another movie out made by a Russian director called Stalingrad now.
Huh.
Supposed to be very good.
Cool.
Yeah.
My point about Die Hard movies aside is that
Anyway,
in the beginning
sorry.
of the movie, he's getting on a plane, and he's putting his luggage in the overhead thing, and his gun sort of slides out from his holster a little bit, and
Yeah.
he's smoking with his other hand. And I think, boy, there's a couple of things that you could not do today.
Yeah.
You can't just carry a gun on an aircraft. Smoking on an airplane, I mean, you are in a little tin can. I mean, 1 or 2 people smoking is going to just cover the whole thing in smoke, and that's the way it was.
That's
Yeah.
the way it was.
1988.
Yeah.
88. That is
Yeah.
not
88.
that long
Well,
ago.
Have you? I've gone through a kick where you watching old Hitchcock movies. Like you watch the old, Jimmy Stewart and all those guys. I mean, they're just like, or Perry Mason is the other one. If you watch
Yeah.
television, I mean, it's just not. I don't know. If it was having a cigarette,
It
it's
was
just
classy.
Well,
It
and the
was like-
hero,
yeah.
the smart guy,
Yeah.
is the one who's lighting up the cigarette. I mean,
Suave. That's
yeah,
what I'm
he's the
looking
cool
for.
guy. The women
Suave.
love him, and he's smoking a
Yeah,
cigarette.
Clark Gable and
Right.
that
Yeah.
sort of like, I want to be like him.
So,
James Dean.
As you're a
Jean
kid growing up, you can see how attractive that would be.
And
Yeah.
now they ban that. I mean, you can't. TV shows and things really will not show hardly any smoking because they feel like kids are going to watch it and then want to smoke, which I think is wrong and stupid. But they really try to limit that. Hollywood is trying to limit all these different things. I mean, you look at Camel, who got into so much trouble for marketing to kids, or like basically,
Joe Camel.
yeah, having a cartoon character and like sort of, which is different than the Marlboro Man, for example. You got this cowboy who's like,
Tom Selleck.
you want to be a real man. Was
Right.
Tom Selleck?
Tom
Marlboro
Selleck
Man?
started off as Marlboro Man, absolutely.
He did.
Tom Selleck is the one of them,
Wow.
if not the original Marlboro Man.
He's
in the
not the
70s.
original because the original died of cancer.
Okay, well he was one of them though. There's pictures of.
I can see that. There's
Absolutely.
very few people more masculine than Tom Selleck. Yeah, I mean, it was sort of like you want to be one of us, and this is what real men do, and
You remember the ads? I know John does. I'd rather fight than quit.
Right.
And it showed somebody
don't
they
know
got that, and they got a blacked out eye. They've got a black
the
eye.
Tarrington.
Yeah, and so
Tarrington.
yeah, I'd rather fight than
What were
quit.
some of the other ones?
The T-zone
Cool
that you
cigarettes.
mentioned.
Yeah, were
And it's
like
I'd rather
they were
fight
good
than
on your throat.
switch.
Yeah.
The menthol.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Okay.
Switch, not quit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Rather fight than switch.
I'd rather fight than.
Yeah. There was an ad where there was a doctor smoking, and it said, hits your T zones. It was like taste, throat, and there was a third
Right.
T where it was, it was about the taste of the, the feeling.
Tracheotomy.
Yeah, that's probably the third T. Yes.
Yeah, what was I going to say? I don't know.
Yeah, and I wonder.
I can't believe there's no smokers out there that.
Well, they are. They're just cowards.
Well, you know what they've all done? They've all smoked to the vapor cigarettes. They've now gone to
Oh.
the blue, the little electronic cigarettes, which isn't actually smoking. So now you can have the pleasure of nicotine and the visceral experience of blowing a vapor out without actually smoking.
I can't wait for the studies to come out on this in 10 years. It's so new right now. There's no real studies on it.
You don't
and
really
so-
know, but judging
Yeah.
from the, tobacco, I don't know.
There's no free lunch in nature. This is what I would tell you. You think you have a workaround or like, hey, we're tricking it. No, it doesn't work like that. There will be something else that's like, the vapor causes brain hemorrhages or something.
Yeah, those are bad.
Those are bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's another one for you. I work in an office, and I know this is now because tobacco use is prohibited. But I work with a guy who, you notice in a meeting every once in a while he's got a little paper cup there, and he kind of does that thing, and it's pretty subtle. But he's a professional. He's a suit-wearing professional guy, and
Do people think that that's
and
safer?
he's got stuff in his lip, and so my question is, that's not smoking, and yet it's not allowed. But if somebody's sitting in a movie theater, I'm serious. You're sitting in a movie
Wait, what do you
theater.
mean it's not allowed? It's allowed.
No, tobacco. The laws that prohibit smoking, they prohibit tobacco use typically.
Oh, so you can't chew.
So you can't chew. If you're in a non-smoking environment, you
Oh,
can't chew
interesting.
tobacco. At least as far as I understand.
Well,
So
what's
it's-
the logic behind
the
that, do you
signs?
think?
The signs say. Well, it's disgusting, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not saying that chewing tobacco
But
is
there's
like.
no danger. There's no health danger.
But
to
if
me.
you're sitting in a theater, and the person 2 rows in front of you is chewing tobacco, is that really inconvenient? Inconvenient. It's dark. You can't even tell. But
No.
yet, by rule, that person's
The
not
worst
allowed.
thing is, you stand up and trip over the cup
Ugh.
with all the.
It's gross.
sploosh in
Oh.
it, yeah.
yeah.
What is up
Or
with
you,
the baseball players?
you mistakenly think it's your Coke and you pick it up and you're going to take a.
Well, and the bad thing about that is you got to drink it all because it's all connected. You can't.
Oh God. Oh.
Sorry.
No,
That's
the
an old-
baseball play. It has been, and chew has been entwined in baseball for millennia.
Yeah.
It seems. And they used to make this big chew gum.
Yep.
Right.
The pouch that you would pull, and so
Yeah.
like kids can get used to.
Isn't
They
that
had
funny?
candy
I forgot.
cigarettes.
I don't think they
You did-
Yeah,
did
I
you-
remember the candy
And
cigarettes.
you could blow on them, and it blew a little puff
Yeah.
of dust out. If you blew on it, it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, and it was the same kind of cigarette pack. Let's get the little kids involved.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But the
Wow.
chew thing for baseball players,
Yeah.
it's 2014. We all know how
Capitalism,
horrible
yeah.
it is. But it's like if they grow up wanting to be a baseball player, now they're a baseball player, they feel like they have to.
I think that next season they've already outlawed it in the minor leagues.
Oh, have they?
Yes, in minor league baseball, you cannot chew tobacco anymore
Good.
for the last 3 years or something like that. And they said, I can't remember the year, but they've said in the major leagues they're going to illegalize it during games. It might even be next season or
Good.
it's in the next couple seasons.
They show
it
him
will
on the
not be allowed.
jumbotron. He's taking his practice bats as he
Well,
steps up to swing. He spits out a big, and it's like everybody's watching that happen.
Well, it's yeah.
It's filthy.
Yeah. Baseball players are kind of gross anyway, because they'll close in on the invariably they'll close in on the pitcher or something. He'll reach down and adjust a
Well-
supporter or something. It's just like it just never fails,
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I guess
or
it
that
is
big old
unique.
cha or whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think that there is something to be said for less role models smoking and using the chaw, and that correlation to kids not growing up and wanting to do that. And that's not to say that Hollywood is correct in banning smoking on everything, but I think it does help if you're not seeing Charlton Heston and these people up there, the
John Wayne.
the virulent men
Yeah.
on screen smoking and wanting
Yeah.
to be them, and the athletes and things. I think kids will have. I can't imagine one of my kids smoking. I can't imagine. I mean, because they were born, in the late 90s, early thousands, and so they've grown up hearing nothing but horrible things about smoking and having few people smoking.
It's
so
true.
if you do that, what are they going to turn?
It's
Are they going
not
to turn
like-
17 one day and then decide to try it though? And if they do, why? And maybe that's part of it though.
Maybe they have a death wish.
I want to try with this thing that my parents have always told me not to, that rebellion.
Yeah, there's
sort
a
of
little
thing.
bit of
I'm
that.
going to try.
yeah.
I'm going to go to a party and drink, which they told me not to do, and I'm
Well-
going to probably smoke a little something else, and they've told me not to do that, and I
Yeah.
shouldn't say I'm sorry.
What's-
Pardon me. That's a bad thing. To,
No,
I didn't
that's
mean
okay.
that. That's not.
No,
what,
no, that's fine.
Yeah.
What's the difference between drinking and smoking in your mind? I mean, they're both legal. Both will harm you. I don't know which one. I guess I'd say smoking does more damage because it has a physiological effect, clearly.
Alcohol has physiological
Well,
effect.
true,
too.
true.
And people
I
get
don't know,
terribly
like
addicted.
liver
People get
disease or
terribly
something?
addicted
can-
to alcoholism.
That's true.
Not to mention drunk driving and all the
Yeah.
ways that people kill themselves.
That's true. I mean,
Yeah.
there's really not much difference. They're both destructive.
I would say since smoking has gone down so much,
Although
drinking
if
probably
you
kills
if
more.
you use alcohol as directed, a glass of wine or a beer or two in a day, that's probably not going to harm you. You're probably going to live to a normal age.
I think you could have a cigarette a day. And be
You
fine.
might be able to, and like I said,
I'm gonna try
not
that.
everybody that smokes gets COPD, but
We'll hear back from Brian in 15 years. Follow up. yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like you say, you hear these stories about, boy, my dad's 95, and what's his secret?
Shot of whiskey every morning.
Bacon and eggs,
Yeah.
and then, whiskey and 2 packs a day. And that's how and then you're like, well, shoot, then it must be good for you, or it certainly can't be bad for you. And you can't do that kind of math. I mean, that's just crazy talk. Some people live till they're 95, and
Right.
that's what it is. But anytime you're inhaling something, here's the thing. Let's talk about pot for a minute, if we could. I know it's not tobacco, but while smoking, tobacco is on a downward trend,
Yeah.
pot is on an upward trend, and even in terms of being legalized in more places, it's becoming popular, and it's like, when are we going to get around to freeing the pot smokers now? And we're going to, it's the new gay marriage, where it's like, well, these 2 states are now allowing it, so now we have to. Anytime you are sucking something into your lungs, you are going to do damage. Period. And
As long as it's not air.
yeah,
Go
air's
ahead.
probably okay
Okay.
for the most part.
All right.
You can have too much of that
You
too.
said anytime you're sucking something
Yeah.
into your lungs.
No,
I just
no,
want to clarify.
That's fair. Fair is fair.
All right.
But people, and especially something you can label as medicinal now. People are like, well, surely there can't be anything wrong with that. And it's just false.
Well, you can ingest it in other ways than smoking it.
Yes, true,
Yeah.
true, but they don't. I mean, people do, but
A lot of people, eat it.
yes, in brownies
Yeah.
and things like that,
Uh-huh.
yes. But people want to smoke it.
Some people like to smoke it, yeah.
And-
And I
and-
don't know if they have good studies on the health effects of your lungs by smoking it. I mean, it's not like you're smoking, I don't know,
Pack a
a
day.
cigarette, a pack a day.
Studies.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
And marijuana cigarette, one of the studies said it was about the same as smoking a pack of tobacco cigarettes.
Yeah, I
don't
don't know
believe
if I
that.
believe that. I don't believe
that.
it.
But
it's
it's
the reefer
particulate.
madness. Like in the 30s, they came out with reefer madness that was all a bunch of baloney. That the guy became a sex-crazed lunatic after taking a hit of a joint, and that was all.
I watched that when
was
I was
all
young.
BS. That's part of the problem. And then on the other hand, you have the cigarette companies that promoted cigarettes and swore up and down for years that it wasn't unhealthy at all. It didn't hurt you at all, and it's the profit motive there.
Well, and it's only a matter of time before there's a profit motive for pot too.
Well-
before the big companies get involved and
Yeah.
start doing that.
And while some people do eat it, and that's true, I think it's interesting that the popularity and in the public mind, smoking seems to like it's at an all-time low in terms of people's perception. And I think
Tobacco,
you
smoking
referred
tobacco.
to them as losers, I think, earlier. But you need to call and defend yourselves against
Call a
the
spade a
prejudicial
spade.
statements by Mr. Sander here.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that while we have that perception about tobacco smoking, that marijuana smoking has become more socially acceptable to the point now that we're looking at legalizing it. So I I think it's a fair point. I think it's why is that? And real quickly, we talked about alcohol too. Real quick, it's interesting to me that while to whether it's making people stand in the rain or whatever it is, there's a lot of compassion out there for people, whether it's alcohol or various other kinds of drugs. It seems like I'm asking a question, I guess. It seems like we are more harsh towards smokers. And yet somebody, if they've got an alcohol problem or if they've got some other kind of an addiction, we need to, help them and give them treatment and
Well, there's a lot of help for smoking cessation. Yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot of help for that.
I want to add. I mean,
when you read an H&P on somebody's history and physical of somebody in the hospital, they call it tobacco abuse disorder, or
Really?
yeah,
Interesting.
that's what it's mentioned now. Yeah.
I want to just follow up on what John said, and this lends credence to what he said in terms of smoking pot versus smoking tobacco. That the difference is that there's no filter most of the time. Number one, it's smoked to a shorter length and at a higher concentration and combustion temperature. And therefore, marijuana cigarettes tend to have 3 times the tar, 5 times the carbon monoxide concentration than a cigarette. So
But there
we're
may
talking
be
about a
other
marijuana
alkaloids.
cigarette.
a marijuana cigarette.
There may be other alkaloids in the marijuana itself
Yeah.
that protect you, whereas in tobacco they don't.
Yeah.
And also, I would say that the truth is, the majority of people don't ingest marijuana in a cigarette, particularly anymore, right? Because it's not the old
do it in
time.
a
I don't
pipe
want
or
to
whatever.
demonstrate my knowledge of such things, but the pot today is stickier and wetter, and it doesn't burn the same way as the stuff did a long time
What do you
ago.
think they're doing?
I think they're using a pipe
Oh,
or
they-
a bar
Oh,
or a
yeah.
water
Well, they're
pipe or
burning
some
it
other.
one
They
way or
burn
another.
it,
they're
or
putting it
they,
through- they're bringing
they
it through
heat it
water.
up, yeah, or
Yeah.
they.
But you're still
Vaporize
inhaling
it, yeah.
whether you're doing it with paper or a pipe. I think you're still going to be getting a lot of carbon monoxide
Yeah.
and bad stuff like that.
Yes.
When you talk about treating it as a disease or a disorder, and some people, the thing that I always think about is food, because I'm always thinking about food.
Me too.
That's just the way that it is. But it's like, well, geez, people who overeat and who are fat, are they addicted to food? Do they have this?
You have to eat to live.
Well,
you
that's
don't
my
have to
point.
smoke to live.
I know.
Yeah.
That's my point. But you could say that you don't have to eat burgers and all the crap that we do eat. You could eat a salad. And a smoker could probably smoke 1 cigarette a day and maybe be okay.
Well, okay.
I don't know. It's easier said than done than just to say, just stop. The part that gets me is, why did you start to begin with? In this, particularly in 2014, there's just no excuse. I mean, it's overwhelmingly pounded into your head. And that's why people who I see smoking, if they're young, if they're older, I cut them a break. If you're young and you're smoking now, you're a douchebag. I'm sorry. The only reason you do it is to be popular and look cool at 16 or 17, and then you can't stop. And I'm calling you weak, and I'm saying you have sold out and are so transparently trying to be cool that that's sad to me. That's what I am saying. And that's why I judge. Now, if somebody's 60 or 70, they smoked for 10 or 15 years before they knew about all the bad stuff. Now it's tough to quit. Okay, I'll get that. I'll give you that one. But what about cigars and pipes? Let's talk about that for a minute. My dad smoked a pipe every once a month, maybe, or something. I mean,
And he's not a douchebag or weak.
He's
You
not
haven't judged him in quite the
Do you
same
have
way
any of
as
his pipes?
I do.
Mersenne pipes?
I don't know what kind it is, but
Those the white looks like white.
It's
an
not
ivory or something.
Ivory or.
he had a box of like 20-something pipes.
Okay.
And
That's
so,
cool. Yeah.
And so, now, and he passed away a long time ago, and so, once a year, maybe I'll smoke a pipe. And there is something, and it's not for a physical high or a buzz. I don't really get anything from it. It tastes nasty.
So it's different with you.
Well,
Is that?
no, no.
Okay, okay.
What I'm saying is, with the pipe, it is very much a mental and emotional sort of, you can wave your pipe around, and be like, well, I think that, and
Right.
you feel.
You can be professorial.
Yeah, you can point things out with it, and it's like your glasses. Like if you chew on the end of your glass, it's a prop in some ways, but it does sort of make you feel comfortable. You have a warm bowl in your hand. The smoke is curling up. It harkens
Well, a
back to
cigarette is
things.
relaxing. I mean, when you smoke it,
not from a physiological standpoint, but the action of doing.
That is
of
relaxing.
puffing.
Plus, the nicotine is has a calming effect.
Well, and I think also that people get started by smoke, like they have that positive experience with the pipe. And so it becomes, well, this pipe's kind of a hassle, so then you begin to like smoking, so I'm going
you
to smoke
think?
cigarettes.
I don't
It's the
think
I'm going
slippery
to say,
slope
I will
idea.
tell you, I will
Okay.
tell you that I smoked as a younger person, and I had friends that were smoking cigars, and so I'd go and try to smoke a cigar with them and do that whole thing. And you know
Yeah.
what a cigar made me want? A cigarette, because I remembered liking it, and it's sort of like I remember what I like about this, and I liked it a lot more than I like this stinky thing.
Maybe.
So-
Cigars are not pipes, though. I don't think
I
people.
agree.
I don't think there's a 15-year-old out there with a pipe, putting together his pipe and then moving. I think you graduate to the pipe later after you are sort of done with smoking.
Or
and you're
some
looking
people
for
know that-
start
what
with
else is smoking
cigars and that's
cool.
all they smoke.
Yeah.
Like my wife's grandfather. He always
cigars?
smoked cigars. Yeah.
Well,
He's
and that,
90,
I think
91, 92.
I think that cigars sort of embody that manliness. Like, pff, you want a cigarette? I got something that's twice as big as that. So look how much more manly I am. I mean, it's the Arnold Schwarzenegger sort of effect of cigar aficionado, and it's a lifestyle kind of thing of
Right.
cutting the end off and doing the So
Real
I think
quick,
that's
the pipe.
closer.
Real quick, my grandpa used to smoke a pipe, and he would use certain kinds of tobacco, and it smelled good. It was like incense. It smelled great.
I've looked high and
he
low
would
for
smoke-
incense that smelled like pipe, and I can't find it.
Huh.
And I don't know why they don't have it, because everybody remembers a grandpa or
Yeah.
somebody who smoked and their clothes smelled like that. And if I could get the smell of that without any of the bad stuff, I would in a heartbeat, because it does bring back those memories. And yeah, a particular brand. Your dad used this brand, or your grandpa used this brand, and when you smell it, you're like, oh,
Yeah.
it's Dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But isn't that funny? So, I mean, even in this whole show, right, we've talked about all these things about the negatives of smoking, and yet you've got a really positive association
Yep.
and certain
Absolutely.
and even things that you would get if you could, if you could do it without the negatives of smoking.
Yes.
I, that's interesting.
Well, I think there is an emotional attachment. I think that apart from the nicotine and the physiological effect, there is an emotional. I need a smoke. I need something to take the edge off. I think it's sort of half placebo and half nicotine.
Yeah.
And but yeah, when
It's a reason to stop what you're doing.
you go outside, take
Yeah.
a break.
That's right.
Take a break.
But yeah, my dad, would pick me up on the weekends, wearing his sweater and smoking his pipe, and so the sweater absorbs all the, and so you smell it and you're like, oh, this smells like my dad, 'cause it smells like a pipe smoke. And so yeah, when you smell it, we talked about it on the food
Now,
show.
if your dad beat you and stuff, that association.
if he
that
if he
smell-
puts cigarettes out of my
but
arm, I may
that
not.
that
I may
smell,
not
You
smell
wouldn't have a
cigarettes.
good
That's- see,
association with
that's-
that smell.
No, but we talked on the food show about the smell of a particular kind of food that, boy, Mom used to make this, and so now when you smell
Right.
that, there's a part of your brain that,
Oh,
boom,
yeah.
it just sends out those,
Right. It
those
connects with
chemicals.
the images and the memories.
Oh,
and,
yeah. Smells and tastes and things are all heavily tied into that.
Yeah.
And now smoking, to me, if we go out to a bar, or if a friend or my wife or something goes out, with some friends to a place where they are smoking, or if you go to a casino, for example.
Because you really can't go anywhere where they're smoking
Not
anymore.
very
indoors.
much. But
casino,
if you
yeah.
go to like a club or something,
Yeah.
and there's people standing outside smoking, and you come home smelling like alcohol and cigarettes, and it has a very specific smell that has always been difficult for
gross.
me. That's like, oh, that just smell. Even if you weren't the one doing it.
You smell like a derelict. I mean, right?
Yeah,
There-
I mean,
it's,
it's
there's,
kind
yeah.
And you smell used up.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
like one step up from urinating on the sidewalk or something. Smokers.
yeah, one step up. I think you're being generous.
Well, I think also too that it probably reminds you of that day, those days in college when you went and forgot what you did the night before, and you smell that
Yeah.
smell, and it's like, oh,
Yeah,
what an idiot.
Now-
So.
Go ahead. Yeah.
No, it's just.
it does bring you back.
Yeah.
For sure.
We haven't really talked about the cost to all of us of
Yeah.
caring for people that are damaged or sick directly because of smoking. It's one of the grossest things there is when somebody gets neck cancer or throat
Oh, yeah.
cancer, and they take a flap of skin off their leg and sew it on right here where they've cut away everything,
Yeah.
or there's a stoma right here,
I would like
and
there
the
to
person
be.
puts their finger up and
Yeah.
blocks the hole so they can talk.
I would say if you have smoked and you are uninsured or whatever, and you have problems, you check into the hospital, you shouldn't be covered. If we prove like, no, you smoked, we're not paying for your
I
cancer.
think the bill should go to the tobacco companies. That's what
Well,
should happen.
well, that's reasonable.
they've already paid something, but compared to the amount of profit that these scumbags have made over the years of the ready rolled cigarette, yeah, the bill for caring for these people should go right to Altria, and they should be made to pay for it.
Yeah, but they have too much lobbying power.
Right,
That'll
exactly.
never happen, and
Yeah.
they'll always be around. I mean,
Yeah.
at least we don't have the machines. I mean, it seems so quaint now where you could put a dollar in and get, push
Yeah,
the
a
button
buck
and
or
the pack
whatever,
would fall out.
25 cents.
That's
And
crazy.
you'd pull the thing and it'd go,
Yeah.
cha-chunk, cha-chunk,
Yeah.
and then it'd come down there. There's your
I remember
Yeah.
those. I mean, I remember walking into
Yeah.
a Denny's or whatever, and in
Yeah,
the little lobby
the-
they had one.
the window
Yeah.
with the different stacks of the different brands and
Oh, yeah.
Well, and at the Denny's, you could buy that and then carry it into the restaurant
Right.
and sit
just
down.
light up at the table.
and just sit there and smoke. And yeah, a long time ago, I was a waiter in one of those places, long ago. People just sit there at the counter, smoke cigarettes, and drink coffee all night long, or whatever it was.
In my hometown, we would go to the truck stop because it was on a highway intersection, and there was a truck stop where truckers would go, and you'd sit there, you get a cup of coffee, and everybody's smoking at their table, and I mean that's the way, and it just seemed so cool to us. We're getting low on time here. I want everybody to like us on Facebook. Go to Facebook, facebook.com/Wrong TV Show. I always promise that if you like us on Facebook, I'll give you a shout out. So I want to give a shout out to Gus for liking us on Facebook. Thank you, Gus.
where does Gus live?
Gus, I don't know. Illinois.
Illinois.
Yep.
Okay, that's how
Awesome.
widely watched
We've
our
got a
program
worldwide.
Absolutely. So go there, like us on
Right.
Facebook, so you can see what's going on and find out about our future discussions.
is.
Next
Anybody
time,
in Crimea, that have been watching the show, thanks for calling in.
yeah,
Absolutely.
we appreciate that. We're going to be talking next time about the homeless problem, or as Jim says, houselessness.
Houselessness?
Yeah,
I mean,
explain why.
well, is it the fault of the person? Can they just pull themselves up by their bootstraps and they're homeless? It's their fault? Or is it society's problem? What do we owe the people in our society that find themselves living on the street without a job or,
Yeah. So we'd love to hear from you next time. If you know somebody who's homeless, if you've ever been homeless, if you've worked at a homeless shelter, or there's always sort of that feeling of, if I give them money, they're just going to blow it on alcohol or drugs or something. And what's behind that?
Yeah,
feeling?
cigarettes.
Do you
Or
give
cigarettes.
money?
And then they're going to die without insurance in a hospital, and you're going to let that happen.
If I had
So-
my way, yeah.
Okay.
And
Do
I've
you
seen
ever
that.
give money to people that are holding the signs along the freeway?
No, never. And but I have seen them smoking, and it always occurs to me that, well, you got $6 from somewhere and you blew it on that.
I've
so.
seen them going down the sidewalk and picking up cigarette butts
yeah.
or
Yeah.
looking in.
So give us a call next time, folks. We'll see you at the next show. Thanks for tuning in.